Gotta say I'm proud of y'all for putting this thing together.
David Simon is the author of two seminal pieces of journalism, both the source of innovative television shows. Homicide, A Year in the Killing Streets, became the basis for a television series of the same title. The second book, The Corner, is an examination of the crack and heroin trade in an East Baltimore neighborhood, and after a huge reception of the book, it became the basis for two HBO productions. Firstly, the semi-documentary miniseries, also called The Corner, and second, the drama, now filming its fourth season, The Wire. Tonight, David's been kind enough to take time out of The Wire's production schedule to come to talk to with us about the show. We're extremely grateful for that. I'd like to start with the first clip of the opening moments of The Corner. We'll then ask David, or rather my students who are sitting in the front row, will then ask David to speak to some of the question that these opening scenes pose to the class. Then we'll look at some other clips and have some other questions from the class. When we're done, or when David refuses to do any more, we'll have some time for questions from the audience, and then we'll welcome you for a reception in the room right next door. So, I just do have to give a warning to some of you who might not be familiar with The Wire, though I don't think there are many of you here, that this is a show with extremely vulgar language. So if you're going, it's part of the show's realism, and if you're going to be offended by the language, I suggest that you begin to cover your ears pretty soon. So here's the first clip, the opening scene of The Corner.
Gary, how long you been shooting dope?
Hardcore, about 4 years.
And you're how old now?
34.
Man, you started kind of late.
Yeah, well, you know, I done messed with these drugs for the longest time.
And everyone in the neighborhood says things were going very well for you. You worked 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, plus a home development company that I started on the side, yeah.
You drove a Mercedes-Benz.
Everything's going good.
So why'd you start shooting heroin?
I'm gonna give me a cigarette. I need a cigarette.
Aaron, you have the first question.
First, The Corner, originally a work of journalism in print. Why the transition from that medium from page to screen?
Well, anything will go from print to screen if they pay you money. I mean, I would have sold the book to a third party because, in effect, there's not a lot of money in narrative journalism, and if you can sell the screen rights, you're going to. I mean, I sold Homicide. To mildly correct that very kind introduction, I was not directly involved in the making of Homicide until its later seasons. That was a Tom Fontana, Barry Levinson production, and they really did wield creative control. I sold them the book. So, why do it? It's going to get done. If somebody wants to do it, the author will always sell, or invariably. It's very rare when the author will not, because, it's hard getting paid as a writer. But why did I want to do it? I saw it as a means of, listen, The Corner was well received critically, but it wasn't exact, it may have sold 50, 60,000 copies. It didn't sell an extraordinary amount. And the book sort of lives for me as a separate thing from the show. Now, The Corner was, I think, a more accurate depiction of that book than Homicide was of Homicide. Which is not to say that Homicide wasn't a good television drama, but invariably they're all sort of stepchildren to me. The journalism is the journalism, and it's sort of the point of origin. But because I had the resume of having worked on Homicide the last few seasons, I could at least get a meeting with people at HBO. And a broadcast network would have never touched The Corner, but I'd seen what Tom Fontana, who was the major domo on Homicide, had done with Oz prior to that. And Oz was such a stark show and so much different from what you'd seen before. That was the beginnings of HBO drama, really, was Oz. That was the first, their first real attempt at, and it really paved the way. And so once I'd seen that, I had a meeting with them, and it was the only meeting I had. I didn't think that I could go anywhere else with The Corner and have it credibly, there was no way NBC or ABC was going to do it. So it was a one-shot meeting. Do you guys want to do this? And they stayed with it long enough that eventually some scripts got written and a team formed around it. But in a way, in the beginning, what it is you're really just trying to extend the shelf life of, literally the shelf life of your book. It's so hard to sell books in America because people don't read. And so, Homicide sold 30,000 in hardback, maybe, and another 20 in trade paperback, and then the show came on the air. And by the time the show finished its run, it sold like 400,000 in paperback. It's like, oh, if there's a TV show about it, I'll read it. You know, so that's the economy of scale as a writer. So if you can get your stuff made by, if you can get a bad movie made about your book, you're going to do it. So.
Megan, you had a question about the book version and the screen version in the corner.
Why the switch in the series to a person of color as the narrator?
At the beginning and the end of each hour of the corner, there were these interviews, a long interview and then a shorter interview at the end by Charles Dutton, who was the director. And the questions were actually scripted. It was that was acting. The actor playing Gary was conveying details of Gary's life. That was a device that we used because one of the things about film one of the things that I find disconcerting in telling stories on film is voiceover. And voiceover or long passages of historical exposition are the only ways to convey certain facts that are not immediately on screen about character. For example, there was an interview at the end of one of the episodes with one of the cops in the neighborhood, and it was a place where the narrator could say, you know, you keep locking these people up, but you know, you locked up 30,000 guys in Baltimore last year, but Maryland only has 20,000 jail cells. That you could never ask in the rest of the piece, which had no voiceover and had no narrator. The narrator disappears after that thing comes up, what we just saw, credit or titles, and then you're into a story that has no narration, that is all character-driven narrative. So, I mean, I guess I was never going to have David Simon in the piece. I wouldn't, you know, that. I mean, I don't have the sonorous voice of Charles Dutton. He's an actor, and a very good one. But more than that, I wouldn't have even had a narrator at all in the corner, except that when the piece was done, the other writer, my friend David Mills, and I looked at it and said, you know, there's no way to convey who Gary was before and some of his history, and there's no way to convey the flummery of the war on drugs, and there's no way to convey who this person was before they, I mean, because Gary appears to you as a heroin addict, but Gary had a whole life before that, and one of the things that we really resented about the way the people were treated in life was that it was almost like they didn't exist before they were drug addicts, like they had no, it was impossible to connect their earlier worth. So it's just a device. It's a little bit more graceful than voiceover.
I'm going to move on, if you don't mind, to the opening scene of The Wire. This is the very first scene you see before the credits of the first episode.
This kid whose mama went to the trouble of christening him Omar Isaiah Betts. You know, he forgets his jacket. So his nose starts running, and some asshole, instead of giving him a Kleenex, he calls him Snot. So he's Snot forever. Doesn't seem fair.
Life just be that way, I guess.
So, who shot Snot?
I ain't going to no court. Motherfucker ain't have to put no cap in him, though.
Definitely not.
Man, he could have just whipped his ass like we always whip his ass.
I agree with you.
He gonna kill Snot. Snot been doing the same shit since I don't know how long. Kill a man over some bullshit. I'm saying. And every Friday night, we're in the alley behind the cut rate, we rolling bones, you know? I mean, all the boys from around the way, and we roll till late.
Alley crap game, right?
Like every time. He Snot. He'll fade a few shooters. Play it out to the pots deep. Snatch and run.
What, every time?
Couldn't help himself.
Let me understand you. Every Friday night, you and your boys would shoot crap, right? And every Friday night, your pal Snot Boogie, he'd wait till there was cash on the ground, then you'd grab the money and run away? You let him do that?
I mean, we'll catch him and beat his ass, but ain't nobody never go past that.
I gotta ask you, every time Snot Boogie would grab the money and run away, why'd you even let him in the game?
What?
With Snot Boogie always stole the money. Why'd you let him play?
Got to. This America, man.
That story about Snot Boogie is true. That happened. That's in the book Homicide. Terry McLaurin tells that story better than I do. And that whole story of Snot Boogie was beautiful. And it's there as a metaphor for the drug war that you're about to witness. And it's basically saying what the guy says, that amuses McNulty to no end, is you got to let him play. It's America, which is a very true thing, which is to say you didn't include these people in your social or political or economic framework out in West Baltimore. And they created their own powerful economic engine using what was illegal, what was denied. So it was a whole metaphor for the season. And all, we try to do that with the first teaser of every season.
Adam.
Why did you decide to turn from the journalistic realism of The Corner, which is pretty much, a lot of it is straight from the book, to like the heavily dramatized approach of The Wire? And why did you start the whole thing with this encounter?
Okay, well, The Corner was a microcosm of the addict culture and the drug culture, and in some sense, sort of the 12-step recovery culture. It was framed around the microcosm of a single broken family. And in that, you could tell very intimate and emotional stories about individuals, and you could sort of humanize the drug culture in ways that were valuable. But one thing you couldn't do without it starting to seem, and in fact, the only places where you could even touch on it were those interviews at the beginning and end of The Corner. You couldn't speak to the policy failure that the drug war was through The Corner. You can't do it because it's too overarching a theme to sustain itself on a single corner in West Baltimore. If you have characters that start to discuss in serious terms the failure of drug policy while they're running around chasing, a blast or trying to get high or trying to avoid getting beat by the cops, it's inherently false because nobody's doing that. They're trying to get through the day. So it would have been a lie to try to bend the story, the intimate story of the McCullough family to address social political issues. And at the same time, I finished The Corner feeling, and Ed Burns felt, having finished the book, that there were things about the drug war and about the way America pursues its policy of drug prohibition almost with almost a blithe disregard to the realities of it, that there was those were the parts of The Corner the parts of the book that could never, and were not portrayed in The Corner. So The Wire was really an attempt not so much to be intimate with all the characters the same way The Corner was. It was an attempt to tell the story of an America that got left behind and why it got left behind.
Who shot the young'un?
Man, look, I don't know. I don't think it was us. Them other niggas was going wild, though. I mean,
The cops is gonna have to bang some heads on this one. They got to. That means we gotta shut everything down until this shit passed. That means the towers, the low-risers, everything gotta take a long fucking time out.
I know, Strong. I'm sorry, man.
Let me tell you something, man. This here game is more than the rep you carry, the corner you hold. You gotta be fierce, I know that. But more than that, you gotta show some flex. Give and take on both sides. You hear me? Yeah. All right, anything that fired a bullet out of that corner has gotta disappear, you understand me? I'm not talking about the storm drains. Call that nigga Shamrock and drive all that chrome over to the harbor.
The Wire was really an attempt to tell the story not of Avon Barksdale or Jimmy McNulty or Omar Little or any of these people, but to tell the story of a city and specifically the part of a city that's been left behind and betrayed. So if that's, I mean, that's the way I should say it. The star of The Wire is West Baltimore, or second season, the docks, Southeast Baltimore. It's the parts of Baltimore that have not been exalted or offered a future. That's the star, as opposed to the character that's Gary McCullough or DeAndre McCullough.
What do we owe the honor?
Just checking in. Why, you got something going on?
Nothing too sexy, just pushing the case uphill inch by inch on Kentel Williamson. Our stated target.
We're working too, Lester.
Yeah, on your own thing. You even listen to me, McNulty?
I got a real case to bring in. A fellow named Stringer Bell. You might have heard of him, I don't know.
You got a mouth on you, boy.
He's still out there, Lester. He's got his corners, his money. Fuck it, by now, for all you know, he's got all that downtown real estate. Motherfucker probably owns half Baltimore without us even knowing it.
That ain't the point.
You even know what happened to all that real estate, Lester? All that downtown property Bell has title on? Fuck no. He's probably laughing his balls off right now at you, me, Daniels, all of us.
You even pretending to speak for anyone other than yourself, McNulty?
I'm speaking for the job.
You want to talk about police work? I was doing the job when you was just dreaming on it. Daniels was out there too. Now you gonna fuck him when he pulled you off a goddamn boat?
He's a boss. Fuck the bosses.
Maybe Daniels plays a few games to get by, but he's cost himself plenty for the sake of the job. He's earned some loyalty.
Fuck loyalty and fuck you, Lester. I never thought I'd hear that chain of command horse shit come out of your mouth.
Motherfucker, I spent a lot of time in a lot of weak units. More than you. Now, this here may not be perfect, but it's a chance to be police.
Well, then be one.
You're not even worth the skin off my knuckles, Junior.
Jimmy, don't.
You put fire to everything you touch, McNulty, then you walk away while it burns. I got nothing more to say to you.
We were interested in the very few references to 9/11 in this, which we imagine that we're right now a couple months after September in the time frame of the story.
We shot that in November?
November.
Am I right about that? November, yeah, we were a couple months after 9/11.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were guessing because the Justice Department hadn't even regrouped seriously and issued any more mandates. But one thing was clear is, there's only like 12,000 FBI agents in the country, which if you think about the size of the country is relatively small. And they got into drug enforcement in '82 extremely reluctantly. So Ed, knowing this and me having covered it, we guessed pretty easily that the first thing that was going to get tossed by the FBI out of their mission, now that they were going to have to reassign, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 of those 12,000 agents to counter terrorism, they were going to drop drugs in a heartbeat. There were going to be no more FBI drug cases moving to U.S. attorneys' offices anywhere in the country. Yeah. And 3 months after we filmed this, so we guessed right. But yeah, I mean, it was just a reaction to what's the country going to be feeling about the drug war when this thing airs several months from now? And I thought we caught it pretty well.
You got something so important, man, you can't go through the proper channels?
Well, no. I don't know. I just figured if I told anybody but you, you might think I'm riding a rock.
What makes me think you ain't?
Yeah, right. That's a good point. 'Cause look, today, me, Tucky, Lil Mikey, man, a bunch of us got scooped up by the police.
Well, you shouldn't sell drugs. All right.
Nah, see, they didn't take us to the station. They took us down to the bottom of Vincent Street, where all the houses is boarded up, and they let us out. And then, on top of all of that, like, the whole while, they was being all, like, decent and shit. And that fucked me up. And then, like, the police chief, he come out, and this is the crazy part. He say that he got it set up to where we can sell stuff in certain spots, and the police won't bother us. I know, it's fucked up. But I just thought you should know.
I have to say the show is really based on 5 or 6 prolonged investigations and innumerable characters that I reported on, but basically that Ed pursued. Everybody in Baltimore knows, everybody who's from the West Side, they know who you're talking about, even though the names are all changed. So certain things come up, or the way people say stuff, or how people behave, or certain murders, and they go, oh, you're doing Warren Bordley, or you're doing this. And then you start hearing more stories. And then the real guys come around. I mean, the real Nathan Barksdale came around, and we put him in the movie. He had a bit part in one episode. And the real Melvin Williams came around after he'd been paroled, and now Melvin plays the deacon. Since I'm in New York, let me say it. There is no city more vain about its position in popular culture, more indifferent to other realities, more self-absorbed than New York City. I mean, you guys have a lot going on, and there's a lot of wonderful stories to be told, but you literally think that you have the end thing to say, the nth degree of what to say on every single one of them. And Baltimore has 10 times your crime rate, 5 times your rate of intravenous drug addiction, 5 times your rate of poverty. And yet, because all the Wall Street money went here in the 80s and the 90s on that great run-up, and there is no more, hell in Alphabet City, and Morningside Heights is being gentrified. I mean, Manhattan is one big pile of money. And so you guys think you know urban America, you don't know shit anymore. I'm starting to get a little bit pissed off, and I don't mean to be, but...
Why New York?
Must be something happening out there, man. Too big a town, you know what I mean?
You don't believe in the truce?
That's why I asked for that money. Now, if he'd have said, man, we ain't paying you, just be happy to live, I'd have been like, all right, they're keeping it real. When he said, come on down for $5,000, like, man, please. Hey, look at Holmes, I ain't asked for much, but I'm a little light on traveling money. I'm saying I could go around the block and get myself paid, but I'm thinking.
You keep in touch with my pager. I'm gonna need you for the Gantt trial. Go easy, Omar. Stay free.
When Homicide was published as a book, it was the only time they ever, it's not because I'm a great guy, it's because they let me in the Homicide unit for a year. I was really lucky. But this book comes out, and the New York Times would not review it at first because they said it was a regional book. The New Yorker actually did a long review, and then they came back and wrote a little brief this big. But we've always had that problem in Baltimore. There is a tonality to how you guys accept stories that cover of the New Yorker where, it's like, New Jersey and then China, that is you. And an awful lot of really fine storytelling does not permeate. And what's going on in Baltimore is that we've been just doing it so long, and we have so many hours of television under our belt that eventually enough people have found it that, we can't go away anymore. But there really is, it's a very hard piercing the New York-LA axis. And it's very hard for anything to be good because everybody who is writing what they know. And what the hell do you know if you're, God bless Richard Price, because he lives in Manhattan, but he actually crosses the river to go to Jersey City. I mean, that's why Clockers is so good, is he left the fucking island. And I gotta say, it's all the shows that look like LA and New York. I mean, I've gone off now. I've lost it. Okay. But, here's a fact. This is an honest-to-God fact. Last year, there were more corpses on the 3 Law & Order franchises, which are all set in Manhattan. There were more dead people shown on that show than there were actual homicides in Manhattan. I have stories that matter to me because of what I saw when I was a reporter and and where I live. And the other writers also, it's not a one-man band. There's a lot of good writers on the show. And we're all a little bit angry, and we're all just trying to pull the story through the keyhole, and we're sort of like amazed we can get it on American television. That's the beauty of HBO is, they know they know the show now. They know there's no happy endings coming. And they're not telling us, can you lighten it? That's what they used to tell us on Homicide. They used to say, can't there be more life-affirming moments? They did. And it's like, the show's called Homicide, But Tom used to have those fights, not me. That was above my head. Most of the best cops I knew didn't think the drug war was winnable, even while they were doing really good police work. And yet, if you ask most Marines who are in Fallujah, what they value their units, they value the people that they're serving with. The people find dignity in small, non-political places where they can carve out, moments for themselves. We all do that, but I think the country's going to hell. Everybody in West Baltimore has HBO. Okay, and I'm not kidding. I mean, it's like, families that are struggling. It's like, do I pay the BG&E bill or do I pay Comcast? I'm paying Comcast because, it's unbelievable. It doesn't follow that that cable TV or premium cable is a high-end, is like a classist thing. It really doesn't. Maybe it should, but maybe it should be the last thing. But I can't help that. It's not like I'm not trying to make it for premium cable, but premium cable's the only one willing to do a story this dark. Not even like Fox or FX or, not even basic cable will touch these themes. It's like too complicated. It's, they know they're not going to get the viewership they want, and they don't care about what the critics say. So it's this little niche. Thank God it exists. It's like this little thing that developed because of Oz, because HBO came to the point of saying, you know what, we have to do TV that no one else has. We can't compete with the broadcast people for, shoot 'em up, bang 'em up. We gotta have something they don't. And so all of their shows go to a place that, or try to go to a place that is different from television. That HBO It's Not Television thing, you can laugh at it a lot at this point. It's a very old, hackneyed phrase at this point. But it's sort of true when it comes to what their intent is. And I wish they beamed it into everybody's house for free, but, that's not the economic model that allows it to survive. Without it, it would all be moronic. The whole box would be. I know I wouldn't be in television.